you cannot use the brain in other ways than the brain works. So if you assume that the brain needs some repetition to certain stimuli, then you have to adopt that. You want to have the practice a bit more open, that you allow the athlete already to incorporate individual solutions to different situations. That's fine, but that's more advanced. But you need to learn the terminology. So if you want to learn the language, you need to know the words. And sometimes it's better to actually perfect the pronunciation and the spelling, and then you go to sentences. So that is actually something, that is always a dilemma. And that would depend on the coach, see? The coach found a solution for that already. So he knows what is a good stroke that has a fantastic sort of, movement, and then the end result that actually also distracts the opponent. So if that is something that the coach is a master of, the best way would be to actually practice with the athlete to that extent that is going to be repeated. So, and that is more Asian type. It's a way that you identify yourself, or the player identifies itself with the actual game, with the successive moment, with the skill of operating, accepting, and foreseeing what is going to happen. So that's the best way to do it. And then with a good sparring partner, you can play with the athlete. You say, okay, we're going to do this, and then suddenly you make a change. And then you see how this is reacted to. The aim should be defeat the enemy. So how you do that? There are many ways. So I think letting somebody to be exposed to that very complex sort of aim depends on the motivation. So you judge, okay, this person works very hard, okay, he's not yet perfect, but is eager to join. And then it develops, and then you say, well, maybe you're not right yet, but let's give it a go. And then make sure that, they are not going to be disappointed by the defeat. Because defeat, is something that would delay the process of flow. So in the flow, in the optimal experience, minimal things should be always rewarded. And then the athlete, the person itself, should find it as rewarding. So they enter this ritual only because they are subconsciously rewarded. If that comes as a kind of an outside situation where they have to do something and they end up not to be rewarded, then of course you may have problems later on, because step by step that's very important. So you give them little things, and then you give them more, and you give them more, and give them more. But the ultimate aim is you want to be, the winner. So how do you become the winner? Of course, to defeat, to win the game. Failure, personal failure, perceived failure is the worst thing, Of course, there has to be some kind of failure, because that really matures the person, okay? But this has to be put into this bigger scheme of human capacity to become more human. So, of course, we fail and we learn. But, this failure should be a stimulus, not a defeat. So it has to be put into the concept of a stimulus to become better. If that is retained, then of course it's going to go. I need to mention again this optimal experience between making a decision what you want in far distance and doing it and continuing doing it, so that you in fact come to the end to achieve that goal. That is specifically important for the humankind, where this decision making requires special brain areas. The other extreme would be that you get addicted, and this long-term dedication yourself to the aim is not addiction. In fact, it's something that is extremely important, but is based on the mechanisms of addiction. So addiction is that you do something because it rewards you, but you do that even though it's bad for you. And so when a person knows that is gambling, is actually on the internet all the time, and say, well, I can't do that, that's me, and that's already very bad. Getting out of this mode is extremely difficult, but just tells you that, if you can nurture that you actually put your goals far away, and you step by step, time-wise, converge that, and you always feel, that you progress, and the coach sees that in the framework of development, not only as a table tennis player, but also as a person, Because these young kids are going to have, crisis at school, they're going to have crashes, they're going to have, whatever. So this needs to be put in place. And that, as an outframe, is very important. So a personal contact with each and everyone as a trainee is absolutely a very important thing, but with a distance. So accommodate the person, but you allow the person to develop itself, which is extremely difficult to, master. And that's part of an art. That's why I'm saying if a coach had the same experience with her own previous coach, then all the failures in that relationship can be somehow adapted and adopted when she becomes a coach. It's like a teacher, a teacher knows a good student because he would actually see the drive in the pupils and the athletes as he has had it and he has experienced it. And sometimes you need to actually explain that because, rational thinking also helps to make them, motivate themselves, support their own system too, that they will have go into system one, I think. So it's difficult, It's a very challenging task and it's a noble task, being a coach. A coach needs to be a person that likes the mission. So this is not a profession anymore. A coach is a mission. Like a teacher, like a priest, like a doctor. So you are a teacher. So, and that means that you are expected to be part of that personality anyway. So how do you become that? Not by setting up rules, but of course you have to have some rules, but the essential thing is if you have a good teacher, they're going to be good students. And how do you distinguish between a good teacher and a bad teacher? I mean, not because they have certificates. So it's difficult, I think, but it's challenging. That's why it's worth it. So my feeling is that it's better for the coaches to offer something and they come to you. When they come to you, then you know that they want change. They want to change. And that's a good sign already. And then you distinguish between those that actually want to become good coaches because they're collecting points or certificates, and those that in fact genuinely have the internal fire for being a good coach because they can see the joy in breaking and stepping upwards towards becoming an athlete. It's all about defeating yourself, basically, not the opponent. So that's the game of table tennis. You have to respect your opponent because you respect yourself. If you happen to win, you have to be grateful to the opponent that you have been able to be engaged in this very difficult sort of activity. And then next time I'm going to be defeated. So I think it's a little bit difficult, but a coach that actually comes and wants to become a better one, then needs to be driven for that. And then of course you can guide them, and there are many ways to do that because it's a motivational tasks, skillful tasks, and then the psychology issues, and then childhood development issues, and all these sort of things. It's a general sort of education. It's important.